Next on our agenda, and we are a little bit behind schedule, but we will be able to catch up or we don't. We'll do our best. Next is our public comment portion of this, and all of our participants have been told they have 2 minutes. We know time is short, and Lorraine, I think you have a way to communicate when that time's up. But first of all, we'll hear from Julie Nance, and if I pronounce your names wrong, I apologize. But Julie, are you ready to come on? And then is that Jonan, I think, is on deck. Julie, are you with us?
I'm not seeing that she's on.
Okay, well, maybe I'll come back on. Is it Jonan?
Jonine.
Jonine, there you go. I like how it is on there. Joe, that's a lot easier for me to figure out.
That's you.
Okay, and then David Mortensen, you're on deck.
My name is Jonine Johansson. I'm a professional contracts manager. I hold an MBA from Weber State University, where I am an adjunct instructor for the MBA department, and I have experience in curriculum and course development. I'm also the mother of 4 children who graduated from a Utah public high school. My comment today is in regard to the proposal to remove founding and other historical documents, speeches, and writings from the Utah Public Schools English literature curriculum. My understanding is that part of the reasoning for removal includes that English literature teachers aren't including these writings and speeches anyway, and that they don't belong in English literature and are already under the purview of social studies standards. I assert that this proposal is short-sighted, that it does not align with the educational desires and requirements of Utah Code 53G-10-204, and it will diminish the overall knowledge, respect for, and understanding of America's founding and some of its brilliant leaders for Utah's children. Utah Code 53G-10-204 states that through an integrated curriculum, students shall be taught respect for and an understanding of the Constitution of the United States. The key here is through an integrated curriculum. An integrated curriculum is one where different subjects support each other and is especially important in the context of the humanities because these subjects are about what it means for us to be human. These documents on the English literature chopping block are recognized as literary masterpieces that should be included and valued in an English lit context, and then supported through contextual references in history, social studies, and civics courses. This will result in a well-rounded student. Within the proposal to remove itself, R1.11-12.9 and R19-10.9 actually state the literary significance of the founding documents, as well as other writings and speeches. This leaves no doubt that these documents, speeches, and writings not only belong in English literature curriculum, they are essential to it. Case in point. Letter from the Birmingham Jail by Dr. Martin Luther King is regarded as, quote, a jewel of literature. It is, quote, considered the preeminent document of the civil rights movement and designated as a required reading for many students worldwide. It has been translated into 40 languages, and it has, quote, become the most cogent and influential defense of nonviolent resistance ever written, end quote. Historian.
That was Lorraine on the time.
Do I have to stop now?
Well, if you can finish up the closing statement.
Historians and scholars say the letter is brilliant on several levels, and I believe it needs to be debated, challenged, learned from, and valued from various perspectives in an integrated curriculum. I request that the proposal be withdrawn and instead efforts be applied to integration of these vital founding documents within an integrated curriculum. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. David Mortensen.
Yes.
Oop.
Thank you for this brief opportunity to address the board this morning. My name's David Mortensen, and I'm an attorney with Stoll Reeves representing American Preparatory Academy. Later today, the board will be considering an audit of APA's special education expenses from 2019. In the audit, the auditors made a couple of very important conclusions, including that one of the concerns that the auditors found was there was lack of clear information on what documents were necessary and what expenses were appropriate for state education funds. Notwithstanding that conclusion, the auditors questioned about $2.8 million of special education expenses. To be clear, they did not find that those expenses were inappropriate and rather left for this board the determination of whether any of those funds should be repaid. I'd like to briefly address those. The funds largely fall into two categories. First category is wages paid to case managers, paraeducators, and one-on-one aides. To be clear, the auditors did not say that those expenses were not used to serve special education students. Rather, each of those educators was paid specifically to serve and work with special education students. However, in the integrated special education program that APA uses, those educators also provided an incidental benefit to general education students. And for that reason, the auditors have questioned those expenses. The part that is strange is that they question all of the expenses, even though it's clear that the vast majority of the time for those individuals was spent serving special education students. The issue then will be for this board to determine what, if any amount of those monies should be repaid because there was an incidental benefit provided to general education students. And ultimately, federal law would say that you can have an incidental benefit. There's nothing in state law that prohibits it, and this board should not require state special education funds to be used in such a restricted way as that they would prohibit any program that might have some incidental benefit on other students. The second category of expenses is expenses used that are costs, hard costs. In those situations, the auditors did not question that whether those expenses were used to pay for special education services. Rather, they were concerned that APA didn't dot every I and cross every T of its own procurement code. They didn't conclude that APA failed to comply with state law. Rather, they concluded
will you please wrap up?
Sorry?
Mr. Mortensen, your time's up. Do you have a
Oh, I apologize. I didn't hear someone say my time was up.
Thank you.
I apologize. Thank you.
I have a little 2-minute watch or clock here timer that helps me. So go ahead. Please finish. Last thing. I'm giving you your last sentence.
Okay, last sentence. Ultimately, those costs were all incurred for special education services. APA may not have complied with its own procurement code, but that's never been a basis for refusing to allow those expenses to be reimbursed with special education funds. I hope today that you'll very carefully look at that audit and the response and recognize the importance of APA's special education system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn, is it Charette? Yep, I see her. There she is.
Hi.
Okay,
Yes.
2 minutes, please.
Yeah, thank you. You may be surprised to learn that if you vote to enact a penalty on APA today, we still would not have the information we need to bring our program into compliance, which I assume a penalty would be stating that we are not in compliance. And I want to just state it's our desire to be in compliance at APA. We still don't have the information that we need because the special education staff at USB has failed to meet with us to discuss their concerns about our specially designed instruction. For several years, actually, we've been hearing rumors that the USB staff has concerns about our specially designed instruction. In fact, as far back as May 2019, we had a site visit and we thought they were going to talk to us about it. We were all gathered with 30 people in a room. And yet at that point, they actually started the meeting by saying, we are not going to talk about specially designed instruction with you. We were excited last year when the mediator met with us and said, notice this big communication gap and said, we need to put a conference into this mediation agreement. You need to meet as a group together and talk about these 4 specific areas about special education. This was supposed to happen in January 2020. The conference from the settlement agreement never happened and we were stunned. that the staff is that reticent to meet with us. So we just have the question, why are they so reticent to meet with us? We hope that we can meet to discuss these things, and we think we should meet before you decide, before you vote on a penalty. At least we should have that meeting that the mediator asked us to have. So I would just, the last question I have is if after 18 years of running a highly popular and successful program, the USBE staff decides there needs to be changes, shouldn't an LEA be given some time to implement the changes before a penalty is imposed? We haven't even been told what the actual problem is. We have a penalty on the table. It doesn't make sense to me, and I hope you'll ask that question. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Dee Henderson.
I think this issue is actually much simpler than we've had great attorneys like Dave and director.
You're not, okay, yeah, you're D, right? I'm seeing something
I'm
coming.
D.
Okay, all right, it shows a different name on my screen. Okay, go ahead, D.
We've had great administrators, great attorneys on both this issue, arguing about the details. Over the weekend, I watched the movie Ford versus Ferrari. And during that movie, Ford replaced the entire brake system and Ferrari called foul. And there became a squabble with the referee about whether or not they could do that or not. Ford went on to win and be successful, and Ferrari was upset. We have a 100% satisfaction rating with our SPED clients, and the state has encouraged us to innovate. And this whole argument is about whether or not we could replace the entire brake system instead of rotors and calipers. I would encourage you guys to think about the overall mission of encouraging charters to innovate and not send us a bill for 2.7 million because we did that.
Okay. Thank you. Next is Trent Staggs. Is he on?
No, Trent is a parent at our school, but he was able to send each of the board members, he was on earlier here, he had to leave about 5 minutes ago. He sent each of the board members a letter that included a parent petition. And I would read that in his place, but I don't need to. All the board members should have a copy of that email.
Okay.
Maybe you could just confirm that you've received that.
Okay.
Yes, okay,
Yeah.
great.
Uh-huh.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Julie Nance, is she, is anyone recognizing her as being on a line? Are you seeing that, Lorraine?
I'm not seeing her name.
Okay, well, this concludes our public comment section.